What's going on, Maschine Masters? My name is MGTheFuture. Thank you guys for joining us this week, especially on this holiday weekend. Hopefully you guys are safe and have a good time, especially if you're traveling and rejoining friends and family. Today I want to talk about the FL Studio beta. This is 20.1 beta. I do believe it's open to the public this time because it's now announced on their news page. And you can just Google FL Studio 20.1 beta, and the first link is usually image lines, and it takes you to this kind of page instead of a forum post. So this is open to everybody. And what's interesting about it is that they're adding some of the old FL Studio 11 features back, which a lot of people have complained about or have delayed them from upgrading. So I want to highlight some of these, and these are just some of the simple things that they've listed. And I'm sure there's a lot of things behind the scenes because from what I'm noticing, FL Studio even looks different now. So that's just with a 0.1 increment. So I'm very excited about that. It's looking a lot better, especially for Mac users. They added audio and instrument track modes into the playlists. That's interesting to me. We have independent looping returns on the step sequencer. I gotta figure out how to do that, so I'm gonna open up a new tab. This is something we used to be able to do, which was always lit, meaning you can have a 4-bar piano and a 2-bar drum track all on the same sequencer. You got swing mix macros. At the moment, swinging does not work on the Mac version. I do not know if that's a bug. You can close button on the channel rack. I don't even know why they ever removed that. We got mute switch on channel settings. Interesting. You got 512 steps you can use on a step sequencer, and that's because people have the controls down to fire, and you can daisy chain 4 fires. And I guess people are using a whole lot more steps than they thought. I don't know. I don't think I could ever use 4 fires, let alone as many steps as they are, because what you normally do is make a new pattern if you have a longer sequence. But this may be more appealing to people who may not be writing drum patterns. They might be writing something that's more complex in terms of arrangement of like chords or piano or string sections. They might be writing everything at once. So having a fixed pattern will interrupt their flow. So having it be 512 steps, you can write really longer chord progressions, especially in terms of a musician. They got a frames per second counter for the CPU meter. They get into the video game world. And most exciting, and probably what I spend most of my time on, is the ZGE visualizer. It supports 3D model, and there's demos, so you have templates that you can use to get started. So this is a perfect opportunity for you guys who want to create visuals for your beats for YouTube, and nothing boring on a plain image of Bart Simpson or something. Or if you're just creating micro content for Instagram for your beats, you can do it directly out of Fruity Loops now. And I think that by itself is the most useful thing because it works on Mac now. And so you don't have to worry about learning After Effects and things like that, although that doesn't hurt. But having it built into Fruity Loops in your pipeline, everything's gonna be lit. So now that we have a pattern, I can go to my mixer. So they did something with the mixer, it's sharper. I don't know what the colors are. I don't know if they make my grays grayer, but it looks different than how I had it. So we still have our default limiter. You could change that, by the way. If you do not like this particular loadout, you can change your template. So you do new from template. And for my old school Fruity Loop people who are coming back to it after a time, go to new from template, minimal, go to empty. But more importantly, you go to empty with 4 sends. And this way you have your reverb, delay, and everything that you're used to seeing on the right-hand side. And it'll set that up for you automatically. And it'll also set it up in Fruity Loops without the limiter, especially if you're the type of person who's in the gain staging, or you just don't like the way the FL limiter sounds by default, and you get in the process of creating and you forget that it's on. That can be annoying. So I normally do empty with 4 sends. That is the classical Fruity Loop setup. So that's there. And the ZGameEditor gives me chills because I had it before on Windows and I had 2 problems, and you guys might have this problem too, although a lot of you are getting MSI laptops and things like that with good video cards. But I didn't always have a good video card. So even when I had ZGame, 2 things. It didn't work. It was kind of buggy. And then 2, my computer wasn't powerful enough to do it. Now that I understand how it works and it's powerful enough to use, let me show you the easiest way for a beginner to use ZGame. So they say click on Wizard, and Wizard is essentially a couple of templates that you have. So you select a template, you get to preview it, it gives you information about it, who created it, I guess keywords and things like that. And what happens is these things react to your music. So if I hit play, the spectrums and everything respond to my song. And that's what most of you guys are looking for, right? You're looking for interesting ways for people to engage with your sounds. So it gives you a few of these different presets and things like that. And I'm assuming you can save them. And like when it becomes to 3D processing, this will tax your system. This will spike your CPU if you don't have it. But you have the old Windows Media Player type things. That's lit, bro. It reacts to your song, and the parameters react to any mixer insert that you want. So I'll show you that just a little bit. So we're gonna do I was actually quite enamored by that this list has so many options, but it looks like they're all the same option. But keep in mind, people made this with ZGame, so you can make it deeper than that. So you go to edit preset, and what you're gonna do is, depending on who made this preset, it becomes very intuitive because they kind of, see how it has to redraw? That's your processing power. Come on, bruh. they created this 3D liquid with these parameters here. They created the blobs with this. And I guess there's some kind of buffer thing, which is a setting. And basically, think of this like Photoshop. Each layer of complexity in the animation or the visualization just comes from adding a new layer. So I added a new layer here, and each new layer can do something else. The problem is you're gonna see a layer of 100 different things, and it may not make sense at first. So what you're really gonna have to get used to doing is opening up to 12 presets or so and looking at which thing they're using and which category it's in. Because then you'll start to understand what it does. And similar to audio, how we could solo a sound and hear it, you can also click up here and like solo a layer. And you just see that that layer is not doing anything, even with sound. Maybe it's this layer. Maybe soloing a layer doesn't help because those layers don't actually generate the image. But there's ways to mute and bypass things like that. Okay, so we'll just bypass a layer and you'll see what the layers are. And you be able to see what those are, because I didn't see those before, then you can kind of narrow down what parameter that was and what that generates when you want to make your own custom one. So you go through all the presets, get used to all the different modifiers that they're using, and just like make a little notepad like, oh, color blobs, which is under particles, is a particle system. And then you switch that to bugtails. That's another particle system. So as you under particles, you start to understand that there's particles are literally 3D particles, and you can manipulate them with these particular parameters. The top ones are usually color, the middle ones are usually positioning, and then the bottom ones is how they move or their behavior. And this is all random. You just mess around with this until you get familiar with it, and more importantly, until you get something that you like. There's no rhyme or reason for the most part until you start adding complexity, and they're not very well defined. So you really have to experiment with these. But as you mute them and solo them, you'll start to see what each one does, and you combine them and make new stuff. And just like making music, you put effects on at the end, which are like mastering, limiters and compressors. And those are usually post-process. So post-process, think of that as mastering. That's the last thing you add to this chain of randomness. And that'll change the color and the effect of what you're doing. It'll change the overall tone of it because it's last in the layer, more importantly. You see what I'm saying? And there's mad different kind. These are like the Photoshop filters that you add onto your graphics under the post process. You see what I'm saying? It makes it look real crazy. You get into a Daft Punk vibe real quick. So you have all these ugly graphics before this, right? None of that makes sense, but you add something to master it or you make it uniform and your music replies to it. You feel me? So this is the most exciting thing about this update. Getting this daggone thing to work. This daggone thing having an overall that's easy to understand. They made it modular so that each thing is its own component. And then the fact that they have a wizard where you can experiment with other people's ideas so you can understand what these parameters are, get used to it, and make really dope visuals. I'm super excited about that, and hopefully you guys are too. You can add 3D models to it. That was a really exciting thing in the demo that they had in their video. There's a 3D car there. So what you do is you go on Google and you look up, let's do add content. Let's find out what it's called. So you can add an image, your logo, whatever, text. I guess it converts it to 3D text, which is interesting. HTML, talk about complexity. I have no idea what kind of HTML you add to that, unless you are coding your own behavior. You're not gonna learn that from this program. Meshes, and I think meshes is the 3D thing. I think that's what they mean by that. So you add a mesh. So it takes .3ds files, right? So we're gonna do a basic cube. So it looks like they give us some default stuff. So we'll do a basic cube, 3ds. But you can go on Google and search for free 3ds files now, like a car made in the 3ds object mode. So you download a car.3ds of a Ferrari or whatever your favorite car is and import it into ZGameEditor and set up your scene. But you have to go back to main, and one of these parameters add that mesh. So you'll be looking for something that says mesh, aka 3D object or shape. Image is one of them. Is it HUD mesh? Let's try that. So HUD mesh one on top, right? And our mesh source is a 3D cube, and boom, we get a 3D cube. Now, what do you do with that cube? That is the part I don't know yet. I don't know how to get the imported objects to move yet, but you'll see like there's things like spinning, rotation. It's just moving on its own. Let's see if it reacts to audio. It doesn't, so it's isolated. So there must be an additional code or pathology for you to hit play and for your music to affect the cube. Just like my music affects these waves, there's ways to do it. And what's cool about the things that audio do affect, you see how like the audio source that affects our reactive mob is set to master, but what happens if I set it just to channel 6? Set my my percussions to channel 6. So now the mob, let's take all this off. You can't see it unless buffer is on. So these are only moving when the percussion hits, because I'm getting the audio from insert 6 and I'm sending that to channel 6. So you can almost make like each object to its own sound, something that's following your 808, something that's following on your kick, something that's only following your snare. I know this has an added level of complexity that most people are not used to. The only reason why I'm so comfortable as to navigate through it is because I learned the hard stuff, or tried to, like a Blender 3D and After Effects, HitFilm Pro, all these other programs that people typically make visuals with, After Effects. And when you think about those and look at this is easier. This is 10 times easier because it's automated, and it's almost, and the best part about it, why you guys may not appreciate it as much as I do, is that this is free. This is a free add-on. This is not a $500 program. Most of the things that do this in our other programs, if you buy it, things like Red Giant and stuff, cost $1,000. It's a $1,000 plugin to give us this complexity. So I'm very grateful that this is open source or free in that regard, although you need the FL Studio license to access it. And even with that being said, I don't even know that's true. ZGameEditor may be standalone. So yeah, man, amazing visuals because it allows you to import things. And one last one, we'll import one more thing, because the most important thing is your brand, right? So we're gonna go to images, I'm gonna add a picture, I'm gonna add my MGTheFuture logo, I'm gonna go to main. I'm going towards the end of my layers, right? So layers are left to right, in Photoshop it's top to bottom. So I'm gonna hit the plus icon, add a new layer, move over to it, and we saw this stuff under images, right? We have image effects. So maybe we'll slice up my image. This is a default image, so we go to image source, MGTheFuture, bam, my brand is there. And then you mess with these to adjust the color, like I was describing earlier. Alpha is how transparent it is. And the cool thing is when you move these sliders, you'll see what it does. So it's not a lot of guesswork. And then we gotta see, we can repeat it because it's slicing it. You're adding complexity to it if you need to, depending on what the image is, right? And you can warp it if you need to. You could tilt it. You could do all these 3D mesh type things to a 2D image. So this is a very powerful engine, guys. Like, I can't overestimate it. You see that now that I'm like putting it into this twisting phase, it becomes a flag. It turned into a cloth simulation. Like, what's going on here? They're bugging. But if you guys figure out how to get any of the imported 3ds objects or image meshes to react to music, if you figure out what that control is, please let us know in the comments below, because that'd be a great service to everybody, because then you can import like your emojis and stuff and have the fire emoji moving to the bass line. Like, that is what you see in professional productions of audiovisual stuff. The logo or a custom imported image will move, not just the random screensaver stuff. You want your images to move, create pseudo animations and cartoons. And you can also, like I said, the 3ds thing, don't sleep on that. The 3D meshes, research that, read the manual about that, because you can go online and download all these free open source 3D files and make these crazy 3D scenes instead of having to download all these pictures on Google. You make your own, you create your own world. So yeah, that's the beta for the most part. That's at least the best part about the beta to me, this visualizer. Everything else, they're kind of, you know, cranking back to some of the old features, but it is what it is. It's a nice update. It's a beta at the moment. I look forward to the final version. I look forward to understanding why my swing doesn't work. I look forward to be able to have control over the behavior of these channels that loop and the ones that don't. And me being able to close this, get out of here. Whatever. I don't know. That's not even a big deal, but it's a small thing that means a big difference. But anyway, guys, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, definitely let us know in the box below. Be sure to follow us on social media. I'm at MGTheFuture on Twitter and Instagram. Also follow at Maschine Masters. Until next time, guys, peace.